Welcome back to Brian and Ethan's Biathlon podcast, the podcast where we realize that Ethan has no idea how to pick a fantasy biathlon team.
You're not wrong.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Thanks for listening. And real quick, before we dive into all the action that happened this weekend, just so much fun to see some head-to-head racing again. I just want to let everyone know that the podcast is now on Spotify and Google Podcast and Apple Podcast. So if you enjoy listening to us and want to listen to us on the go, in the car, something like that, head on over to Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, and you can find us there. And you can also check out our podcast site where you can leave a 1-minute voice message for Ethan and I. And if we like what you have to say, maybe we'll include your voice message in a podcast. So all the links to all these sites and all these apps can be found down below. So. All right, first head-to-head races of the season. That was exciting. What do you think, Ethan?
It was definitely a big change of pace from the sprint and individual the first weekend. I thought it was pretty sweet.
Yeah, absolutely. It just, seeing everyone there's just something about head-to-head racing that is just so much more exciting. The sprint is cool and you're race against the clock and there's time checks and everything and the later people know where they are. But the tactics, you don't see the cat and mouse tactics until you're head-to-head. And to me, it really shows who stands out as a really smart athlete. I think Jacqueline he's got a lot of background in competitive cycling. And so for him, the tactics are, I think, one of his strong suits. And, that's why he did so well this weekend.
Yeah. And it's cool because during an individual or sprint, you can't really there's time and stuff, but you can't see really how people are doing compared to each other. If you really are interested in how Johannes Tingesbo is going to do against Sebastian Samuelsson, you might have to watch Johannes race and then have to wait for Sebastian to go. But in a head-to-head race, they're going at the same time. You can just watch them right then and there. You can see the splits for yourself. You can see them shooting against each other, and it just adds a whole new element to the race.
Yeah, and I really like when higher athletes, especially in the pursuit, when athletes are starting in the 20 to 30 range, when they're all of a sudden in the top 5 and you see bib 1, bib 2, and then bib 37 right there, it's whoa, that guy's having a really good race or that girl's having a really good race. So you can just tell exactly what's going on in the moment. So yeah, it's really exciting. But I mean, let's just specifically about the women's pursuit. That was just an absolutely crazy event. 6 women coming into shooting their final standing stage, and it's literally anybody's race. Anybody's race. Yeah, and I mean, going to that last standing, we had Hauser, who was shooting extremely well this whole time, and I don't know what happened. She just completely lost her ski speed in the pursuit. I'm going to be honest, she kind of looked like death while she was skiing. Was not pretty. But Hauser, who had been shooting really well, Roiselin, who was one of those athletes who, like I mentioned, moved up from the back. Chevalier Boucher, solid athlete. Oeberg, both Oeberg sisters, Hannah and Elvera, and then Anais Biscant. And the best shooter going into that last stage was Hauser with 86%. She's an 86% career standing shooter. And Biscant was the worst career standing shooter at 80%. So all of these girls had the exact same, within, a couple percent career standing percentages. So it's not like one person had an absurd advantage over the other. And to see that all of them shot clean, except for, unfortunately, the Oebergs, all of them shot clean and turned it into a ski race at the end. I mean, who are you rooting for? I mean, these are all, in my opinion, these are all favorites and people that I'm rooting for. Who were you rooting for?
I was kind of rooting for Hauser just because at first I thought she was being smart and taking the first few laps easy and making sure she hit the targets, put herself in a good place to compete for the podium. But then as the race went on, I lost a lot of confidence realizing that she wasn't going to be skiing any faster come the 4th, 5th loop. And at that point, I didn't really know who to root for, but I just wanted to see some good racing, and we definitely got that.
Yeah, I would have said I was secretly cheering for Elvera Oeberg, just because I listened to a podcast with her this week, and
Mhm.
yeah, she seems like she's a really she's going to be a really exciting athlete to watch. Seems like she's really smart, and she's yet to get a win on the World Cup. Obviously, getting second in the sprint the day before, a couple days before, was her career best. But yeah, I really
Mhm.
wanted to see her get that win, especially in front of the overall fan or the in front of all the Swedish fans at home. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I was rooting for her, but unfortunately,
Mhm.
with a miss, even with her ski speed, she wasn't able to keep it up. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, and then in the men's race as well. I mean, like really, the if you swapped out Christensen for Johannes Tingas Bow,
Mhm.
that would have been the big three in biathlon right now.
Mhm.
You know, Sebastian Samuelson, it would have been Johannes Tingas, but instead it was Christensen and
Mhm.
then Emilien Jacquelin from France. But Christensen,
Mhm.
who's kind of the outsider compared to these two, comes in, gets the job done, and wins the race. So,
Mhm.
uh, yeah, just like absolutely crazy, insane. I would not have, I wouldn't have picked him to clean, and I definitely wouldn't have
Mhm.
picked him to win the race. But yeah, he just went for it. I'm curious, what do you think about Jacqueline shooting in 21 seconds and resulting in one miss and ultimately costing him third place? Do you think that was a good strategy, or do you think he should have taken his time a little bit more and really hit that target?
I think he should have taken his time, but he's gone for that fast shooting before, and it's worked out for him and paid off and won him some medals. But I think if it's in an individual race where there's not as much pressure around you and it's just you, I think by all means go ahead and try to go fast and then cause your opponents to hear the splits and freak out in their heads. But in a head to head race, I feel like you gotta make sure you hit the targets overshooting as fast as possible. Because even if you clean your targets and the other two people do as well, even if you shoot 2 to 3 seconds slower, you can just make that up basically right out of the stadium. Especially if
Mhm.
you're Jacqueline, who can ski just as fast as anyone on the World Cup. Mm-hmm. And to kind of go away from the podium in the men's pursuit, if you look at the 4 through 7, those places, all four of those guys are separated by 1 second, and they all shot clean on the last standing as well.
Yeah.
And they're not huge names either. Like,
Yes, actually, I wanted to. I'm glad you brought that up. Krishmar,
mhm,
Sapala, Ader, and Gio Kamel. Awesome, freaking
mhm,
awesome races. Like Krishmar was 15th, Sapala was 16th in the sprint. Ader moved up from 27th, and Gio Kamel, the 21-year-old from Italy, moved up from 26th. So like, absolutely amazing race for all four of those guys, and like.
mhm. And like you said, like no nation dominated the top 10 really. Like it wasn't like there was 3 Norwegians and 3 French and 2 Swedish. Like it was everybody, and it wasn't necessarily the people who skied the fastest. It seemed like that race was really won on the range versus on skis.
Yeah, and it was interesting too that um, it seemed like it wasn't great shooting in general. Looked like most of
Mhm,
the people in the top 10 to 15 had pretty decent days on the range, but it seemed like, just from my perspective, that a lot of people were missing that. It just seemed like there was more misses than there should have been, and the wind flags didn't seem that windy. But
mhm,
one thing that has been reported by pretty much every athlete on Instagram was that it was really cold. So I'm wondering if a lot of people are having trouble feeling the trigger. So
mhm,
that, when people are missing, that's what gives these guys like Krishmar and Gio Kamel the opportunity to bump up into the top 6 and top 5. So
mhm,
yeah, and then real quick before we move on, shout out to Paul Schomer, one miss and moved up from 52nd to 36th. Crazy
mhm.
good race. for Schomer too. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, when you're in the middle of the pack like that, you don't get much TV time. But we see you out there, Paul. Let's move on to Tiril Eckhoff. Is she got a slow start, or is she a bust this year?
This is tough. I'm gonna have to say slow start because it's similar to what she was doing last year in terms of the results she was getting. And at this time last year too, the Swedes were skiing incredibly fast and seems like they were always on the podium, just like last year. But what makes me hesitant is that her ski speed is down along with her shooting. And usually last year, if she missed one, she could ski her way back into it, kind of like Johannes Tingus Bo, but I don't have that confidence in her this year.
Yeah, honestly, neither do I. I mean, she was a later starter in the sprint, so she got a lot of she got a lot of TV time because she was bib 111, and just watching her ski, obviously the data is one thing, and I don't want to be like an old baseball scout who's like, oh yeah, that kid's got moxie, but just watching her ski just did not look super impressive. It didn't look it just didn't look like Tiril Eckhoff, It didn't look like it had that fight. But yeah, I mean, going back and looking at some of her results, she's prone to starting off like not super great. In the 2017-18 season, some of her first results were, in the 30s, and then she ended up picking it up, and then having consistent results in like the 20s and the teens. In the 18-19 season, her first results of the season were in the 20s, and then she ended up picking up to being in the top 10 by the end of the season. And then last year, we all know that she started off in Contilati terrible. She was like literally the first race of the year was 67th, and then next race was 43rd, and then she went on to have a record-breaking season. So I think it's still a little bit too early. I know everyone's freaking out. The media is freaking out. But I think it's still too early to write off Tiril Eckhoff. I still think she's going to be a really dominant player in the long run, especially as we move closer to the Olympics.
And I would not be surprised if after last year getting the overall, she said that she just wants to focus on the Olympics. And that's the path she's on. And if that means starting the season not really competing for podiums and being in that shape and fitness, then I think that's going to be great for her if she's able to really perform at the Olympics. But if it doesn't really work out next weekend for her and she's still kind of in the same place she is, I'd start to be a little worried for the rest of the year.
All right, let's jump back over to the men. Overall leaderboard. So the first race in Hochfilzen, Vetle Christensen is going to be wearing the yellow bib, and he is going to be the 5th man to wear the yellow bib this year.
Ready.
Yeah. So I found the Reddit thread that I was referring to, and I'll leave a link to it down below too. But it's the first time since 2011 and 2012, since 5 different men have worn the yellow bib. And again, we're not talking just in the first 2 weekends. We're talking entire season. Fourcade, Johan Bergman, Tarjei Bo, and Emil Svensson had 4 in the 2000. So that's 4 men in the 2011-2012 season. And then this year, after only 2 weekends, literally 4 individual races, we're at 5. Ligrid, Johannes Dinges, Destuo, Sebastian Samuelson, and now Vetle Christensen, first weekend of Hochfilzen. Yeah. And like when you look at the overall standings too, if I like on Real Biathlon, they have the chart of, names so you can see how people are doing. You're right. The people who like Ligrid, who was wearing it the first weekend, he's like now nowhere to be seen. Destuo's kind of dropped off a little bit. Christensen has been on a pretty steady rise. So is Sebastian Samuelson. But then there's a little bit of a gap to Johannes Dinges and Jacqueline. Latipov is up there. We haven't talked about him. Tarrier has been up there. Not a great race in the pursuit, but Tarrier's up there.
Right. And in previous years, it feels like the Yellow Bib has been worn by people who are consistently on the podium or winning. Like, I guess, basically just Johannes Tingus Bo and Martin Fourcade. But now, this season, like you said, it feels like it's almost people who are consistently in the top 5 or top 6 that are getting the Yellow Bib, not necessarily winning or getting podiums every race.
Right, which is, I think, way more exciting, personally. I mean, Johannes Dinges Bo, who I still think a lot of people have as going to be the overall winner. His ski times have not been super impressive, again, for Bo, for his standards. A couple of races with a 10th fastest ski time. But yeah, they go to Hawkfieldson for 2 sprints, for sprint and then a pursuit and then a relay. So that's not going to affect the overall. And then they go to Annonay-Grand Bornand in France for the last World Cups before Christmas. And that's going to be sprint, pursuit, mass start. So 3 races. Basically, they have 5 races, individual races, to affect the overall standings before the Christmas break. And you have, it's just crazy. You have 11 people with over 100 points already. And then, 4 of them at the very top with over 150 points. So this is exciting, man. This is exciting. I'm way more into this than if, one guy's just dominating.
Right. And this puts more pressure on those top 11 or however close it's going to be as the season goes on, but that puts a lot of pressure on them to consistently have good races, because it's your worst 2 results get dropped at the end of the season, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So if, say, your worst 2 get dropped, but then you still have a 20th and a 15th or something like that, like those races where you're not really having a great race, but it's not your worst race, could be the ones that really pay off at the end of the season.
Are you looking at the overall right now?
Yes.
Who's your biggest surprise in the top 10?
I said this last weekend. I'm going to say it again. Sievert Bakken. Never heard of him until last weekend. And he's 9th, and he looked great in the relay. And it doesn't seem like he's doing anything crazy, anything special, anything that we haven't seen before. He's skiing really strong. He's hitting his targets, and the results are kind of speaking for that.
Yeah. I'd have to agree.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Sweden, and let's talk about the women real quick, because we've been talking about the guys. Sweden's just going crazy right now with ski speeds. Are they? Is it home field advantage, or like what's going on here?
I have a feeling that the home field advantage is definitely playing a big role in it. Like, there's fans this year compared to last year, where during the pandemic there weren't fans allowed, but even just watching on TV, you can hear the fans, you can feel that it's different even just sitting at home watching on your couch. And so for them racing, it's got to feel way different. And the Swedes are pretty crazy about biathlon, and I have a feeling that's definitely helping them. But part of me, I just can't move on from the past few years. Like I said before, like they've always come out super hot at home, and by the end of the year, they're not up there in ski speed or results.
Yeah, it's really crazy, because we saw that last year. I remember we were like, oh my god, this is going to be Sweden's taking over biathlon, and then seems like they just sort of fell flat after Christmas. And I listened to a really interesting podcast with Elvera Oeberg this week, like I mentioned, and she was talking about how last year they started off really strong, and then after Christmas they sort of fell flat. And for her, she felt like that was part of her development because she's only 22 years old now. She was 21 at the time, and she felt that she's racing athletes who are 28 years old, some of them 30 years old, and they just have literally, 8-9 years more experience and training under their belt to develop the base, which is a very common term used in endurance athletics. It's the base of training that you've done that builds on itself. Because endurance athletics, it's all about time and how much time you can spend training. And if you're younger, you just simply don't have the same amount of time as someone who's older to get out there and train. So she felt that her drop off after Christmas was not planned, but it wasn't like anything went drastically or terribly wrong. She felt it like was almost to be expected. And so in the podcast, they asked, "What's your plan for this year? You've already started off extremely strong. Literally, in the 4 races that she's raced, she's had fastest ski speed, fastest ski speed, fastest ski speed, and then in the pursuit, second fastest ski speed. So is she going to keep that going for the rest of the season?" And she felt like her training was much better this year now that she's a little bit older. She has a full year experience of World Cup. The other thing she mentioned too was that the World Cup's a long season, and going from being a junior or like even not even a junior, like on the IBU Cup, making that jump from even a full IBU Cup season to the full World Cup season is really big. And the season is a lot longer, a lot more racing. Like you're literally racing mid-November to late March, whereas the IBU Cup season is like a little bit mid-November, December, and then break. And then a little bit in mid-January, break, a little bit in February, break. So, and then especially even the Junior Cup where it's like one weekend a month almost for racing. So that was all stuff that she attributed to her kind of drop off last year. And obviously this is just one athlete from a nation that is kind of shown a trend for dropping off after Christmas. But no, she felt like she was able to put a good full season of training in. And then now with the experience of racing a full World Cup season, she feels much more confident that she's going to be able to keep some good speed going for the rest of the summer or for the rest of the winter. So, I'm feeling good about Oeberg or Elvera Oeberg. I think he's going to be one that's going to be here to stay.
Mm-hmm. I think so too, and especially with the Olympics coming up, I don't think they would have prioritized her development over an Olympic year where Sweden have a really big chance of medaling in just about every race, it seems like, including the relays. And so in their plan of her training for the year, I think they would have really thought about the Olympics, thought about how long the World Cup season is, and made sure she was going to be ready to throw down every single time she got out there, and maybe even feel better and get faster as the season goes on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I mean, even Sebastian Samuelsson right now throwing down crazy good ski times. Obviously, had the fastest ski time in the pursuit, in the sprint. Did he also have the fastest ski time in the sprint? Looks like it. And then the first World Cup, he had the second fastest ski time behind, I believe, Ponsaloma, his teammate. So, I mean, his ski times right now are up, way up, even compared to where he started last year. And I remember last year we all were, thinking, "Oh my God, he's on fire right now. He can't be beat."
Yeah, I was gonna say at this rate, I don't know if they're gonna be able to keep it up, but maybe they kind of light it up at the beginning and then cool off a little bit, put in some good training over Christmas break, and show up to the Olympics and surprise everybody just like they did 4 years ago.
Yeah. It's almost funny. You say surprise everyone. I still feel like if they were to win, like if Sebastian Samuelsson were to win a medal, I feel like it would still be a surprise, even though he already has a medal. He's a world champion. and is like literally wearing the yellow bib last weekend. Something about him just still seems like he's scrappy and an underdog, and it's always exciting when he does well.
Yeah.
All right, how about those relays though? We finally got some team battles, and kind of like we were talking about last week in our podcast, the relays are super close because every team has like, either one superstar or two athletes that are really good, and like no one else. Like maybe Norway has the depth.
I was pretty impressed with how most of the teams did. I think they all were pretty consistent and kind of how we would have expected. I think I was pretty surprised with Bakken on the first leg for Norway. Norway always have that one athlete that probably doesn't ski as fast and isn't going to post the fastest track times, but they'll go to the front of the race, they'll control the race, they'll hit their targets, and they'll tag off in a top 3 spot or in a really good position to contend for the win.
Yeah, no, we were talking about it last week, so we don't need to beat a dead horse. But yeah, Norway just keeps coming up with all these really good, athletes, and it's kind of weird to see because like if you look at the IBU Cup, the top athletes on the IBU Cup are all German and Russian, and yes, Norway too. But you'd think that the Germans and the Russians would kind of be in the same boat of just always supplying their World Cup team with, these like people who can just show up, throw down a top 10, and then, if the team is that good, maybe they'll send them back down to continue their season on the World Cup or on the IBU Cup. But like something about the Norwegians coming from the IBU Cup up to the World Cup, they can do they'll be like 10th place on the IBU Cup, come up to the World Cup, and then be like 10th place. It's like I don't know what it is about the World Cup. They just step up, and maybe it's an expectation thing. It's like, oh, we're Norwegian. We're like, yeah, we're here to perform. We're here to win, and like anything less than a win it's like you're gonna get banished from Norway or something. But, yeah. So moving on to the women, Belarus looked super good. Honestly, I was a little disappointed in Sweden. I thought they were going to do way better, but again, third place, 2 penalty loops though. Come on, Sweden, what's going on here? 2 penalty loops in third place tells you how absolutely absurd Hannah and Elvera are skiing. How absurdly fast they're skiing. I thought Norway should have done a little bit better. Tiril Eckhoff had a penalty loop, but Belarus, I don't know. It's honestly like I did not expect France to win, and I kind of expected Belarus to do better or to do well. But Belarus did like really well, and I'm actually really impressed, even though I was kind of expecting it. Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the Belarus team, like, to be honest, I have never really heard of 2 of their athletes. And like we said before, like most teams have 2 superstars or at least 2 really solid athletes. And then if the other 2 have a good day and are able to keep up with the rest of the pack, then they should be in good shape. And I think that's exactly what happened to Belarus during the relay.
Yeah. So, what do you think? Is Belarus gearing up for another to defend their Olympic gold medal from Pyeongchang? Or
I don't know if they're going to defend the gold, but I would feel pretty confident in them getting a medal or at least competing for a podium. Because right now, Hannah Sola is skiing really fast, and she had to use 3 spare rounds in her last leg of the relay. And as well as the athlete before her, I'm totally going to say her name wrong.
Kruchina?
Kruchina?
Kruchkina?
Kruchkina? Kruchkina. But she also had to use 3 spare rounds, and if that gets bumped down to 1 or 2, and then Hannah Sola kind of maybe only has to use 1 or hopefully none, I think they're in a really good spot to contend for another gold medal.
Mm-hmm. All right, spare round. Since we just talked about how absolutely absurd the overall standings are, who is your pick from this date for the overall World Cup, both men and women?
I think men, I'm going to have to stick with Johannes Tingesbo,
Mm-hmm.
just because I think he will kind of find his rhythm, and his bad races aren't going to be as bad as the rest of the other men on the World Cup. And then for women, I have a feeling Roisland is just going to be super consistent, just like she was last year. And I don't think Tiril Eckhoff is going to win as many races as she did last year, which kind of offset Roisland's consistency. I think Johannes Tingesbo and Marta Alsbu Roisland are my 2 picks.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with Sebastian Samuelsson because I think this is going to be his breakthrough year. He's 24 now. That's the year. That's how old Bo was when he had his like season of battling for cod and really setting himself apart. And his shooting has always been really consistent. So I'm going to put Sebastian up there as the men. And for women, I'm going to go with, I really want to go with Elvera Oeberg, but I'm going to go with Hauser because her, aside from this pursuit race, her skiing has been strong. Her shooting is really strong. And she's setting herself apart right now after these first 2 weekends. And then going into Hochfilzen, if the pressure doesn't get to her, I think she's going to have a couple good races, and she could really kind of set herself apart and not be overtaken, or basically give herself enough of a lead that she won't be overtaken as the season goes on. So,
Okay.
Sweet. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. Hit that subscribe button if you want to hear some more biathlon from Ethan and I. And again, we are on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast. All the links to everything will be down below. And if we talked about like a Reddit thread or something in today's episode, I'll link that down below as well. And head over to anchor.fm/Brian Halligan 4 to leave us a 1-minute voice message about what you think is going on the World Cup this year. And if we like what you have to say, then maybe we'll include it in next week's episode. So until next time, we'll see you.